In the summer of 2016, a child died in Siberia, not from cancer, not from an accident, from anthrax, a disease that hadn't been seen in that region for 75 years, a disease that was supposed to be gone, a disease that came back because the permafrost thawed and released the frozen body of a reindeer that had been locked in the ice since 1941. The spores were still alive, still infectious, after 75 years underground. That was one animal, one patch of thawed permafrost, one outbreak. Now scientists are finding bacteria that are not 75 years old, not 750 years old, not even 75,000 years old. We are talking about bacteria that have been frozen since before the dinosaurs existed, and they are waking up. This is not science fiction. This is happening right now. And the story of how we got here is one of the strangest and most unsettling things in the history of life on Earth. In 1995, a microbiologist named Raul Cano was studying a bee preserved in amber. The bee was 40 million years old, perfectly preserved inside golden resin like something out of a museum display. But Cano wasn't interested in the bee. He was interested in what was inside the bee's stomach. Ancient bacteria, sealed inside the amber alongside the insect for 40 million years. Cano extracted them, placed them in a nutrient solution, and watched. They started growing. The scientific community was skeptical. Some said contamination, some said impossible. But Cano's results held up. And then, in the year 2000, something even more remarkable happened. A team of scientists in New Mexico found bacteria inside salt crystals buried half a kilometer underground. The crystals were from the Permian period, 252 million years old, the same era as the Siberian traps, the same era when 96% of life on Earth was wiped out. They extracted the bacteria. They placed them in nutrient solution. They woke up. The bacteria, named Bacillus permians, began dividing, multiplying, living, after a 250 million years of frozen silence. For context, when these bacteria last saw sunlight, dinosaurs didn't exist yet. Mammals didn't exist. The continents were a single landmass called Pangaea, and these organisms survived all of it. Waiting. But how? How does something survive for 250 million years? The answer is something called cryptobiosis. And it's one of the most unsettling survival mechanisms in nature. When bacteria face extreme conditions, no water, no nutrients, extreme cold, some species can essentially turn themselves off. They reduce their metabolic rate to almost zero. Their DNA repair systems activate. Their cell walls harden into protective shells called endospores. They don't die. They just stop. Think of it like the ultimate sleep mode. Your phone in airplane mode, but for a 250 million years. And what wakes them up is equally simple. Warmth, moisture, nutrients. The exact conditions that happen when permafrost thaws. If you want to see more of what's been locked inside the ice, and what happens when it comes out, subscribe right now. Because what we've found so far is just the beginning. And what's still frozen underground is the part that keeps scientists awake at night. In 2014, French researchers made a discovery that changed how scientists think about ancient life. They found a virus, not bacteria, a virus in Siberian permafrost, 30,000 years old. They named it Pythovirus sibericum, and they did what scientists do. They revived it. The virus immediately began infecting amoeba cells in the lab. After 30,000 years, its infectious mechanism was completely intact. But that wasn't even the most alarming part. In 2023, the same team went back to Siberia. They drilled deeper, and they found something older. Pandoravirus yedoma, a virus frozen for 48,500 years. Revived, infectious, alive. And then they found more. 7 different ancient viruses in a single sample of permafrost. All revivable, all functional. The lead researcher, Jean-Michel Claverie, said something that stuck with me. He said, "We don't know what else is down there. We've only scratched the surface." Literally. Here's where it gets genuinely frightening. The permafrost isn't just hiding viruses and ancient bacteria, it's hiding diseases. In 2016, the same year as the anthrax outbreak, Scientists found traces of the 1918 Spanish flu virus in bodies buried in Alaskan permafrost, bodies of people who died during the pandemic and were preserved by the frozen ground. The Spanish flu killed between 50 and 100 million people in 1918, more than World War I and World War II combined. The virus that caused it has been partially reconstructed from those frozen samples. Scientists now know exactly what made it so deadly. But the frozen bodies in Alaska aren't the only source of preserved historical pathogens. Medieval plague victims, killed by the Black Death, have been found in permafrost graves across Siberia with intact Yersinia pestis bacteria, the same bacteria that caused the plague. Smallpox victims from the 18th century have been found in Siberian graves with fragments of the variola virus still present in their tissue. Smallpox was officially eradicated in 1980. The only known samples are locked in 2 laboratories in the world under maximum security, or so we thought. The permafrost is an unlocked vault, but ancient diseases are only part of the problem. The other part, the one that genuinely terrifies modern medicine, is antibiotic resistance. Here's the thing about bacteria that have been frozen for millions of years. They evolved in a completely different world. A world where modern antibiotics didn't exist, so scientists assumed they would be easy to kill. Naive organisms with no resistance to modern medicine. They were wrong. In 2011, researchers extracted bacteria from 30,000-year-old permafrost in the Yukon. Standard ancient microbes, nothing special. Then they tested antibiotic resistance. The ancient bacteria were already resistant to multiple classes of modern antibiotics, including antibiotics that weren't invented until the 1980s. How is that possible? Because antibiotic resistance isn't a modern invention, it's ancient. Bacteria have been fighting chemical warfare against each other for billions of years. Long before humans synthesized penicillin, bacteria were producing natural antibiotics, and other bacteria were evolving resistance to them. The ancient bacteria weren't surprised by our medicine. They had already seen something like it hundreds of millions of years ago. Now think about what the melting permafrost means in this context. Every year, the permafrost thaws a little deeper. Every year, more ancient bacteria reach the surface. And every year, these organisms, carrying resistance genes we've never cataloged, carrying survival mechanisms we don't fully understand, enter the modern ecosystem. 4 million square kilometers of permafrost in Siberia alone. Scientists estimate it contains more organic material than all the forests on Earth combined. Organic material that has been frozen since the Pleistocene, since the Permian, since long before the first human being drew breath. And it's thawing. Not slowly. The rate of permafrost thaw has doubled since the 1960s. Some regions of Siberia are losing permafrost at a rate of 30 centimeters per year. That's 30 centimeters of ancient frozen world being exposed to the surface every single year. Here's the scenario that keeps microbiologists awake at night. Not a plague outbreak, not a flu pandemic, something we have no immunity to, something that has never encountered a human immune system, something that evolved in the Permian or the Cretaceous, long before Homo sapiens existed, and has been frozen ever since. No immunity, no treatment, no precedent. Our immune systems are trained by exposure. We carry antibodies built up over generations. Our ancestors survived the Black Death, the Spanish flu, smallpox, and gave us resistance to those things. But nobody in human history has ever been exposed to a Permian-era pathogen. Our immune system would see it for the first time, with no memory, no training, no response. This is not a guaranteed catastrophe. Most ancient bacteria that thaw out simply die. They can't compete with modern microorganisms, and the modern environment is too different from the one they evolved in. But most is not all. And as the permafrost continues to thaw, we are running an experiment with no control group and no way to stop it. Every summer, more of the ancient frozen world comes to the surface. We don't know everything that's down there. We don't know what's coming next. Here's what I find most remarkable about all of this. Life, real life, actual biological life, has been persisting on this planet for nearly 4 billion years. through 5 mass extinctions, through asteroid impacts and volcanic winters and ice ages and everything else the universe has thrown at it. And some of that life didn't evolve past those catastrophes. It just waited them out, frozen in the dark, metabolically silent, enduring conditions that would kill every other living thing on the planet, waiting for warmth and water and the chance to begin again. The bacteria we're finding in permafrost aren't monsters. They're not trying to kill us. They're just doing what they've always done, surviving. The problem is that we built a civilization on top of their graveyard, and now the graveyard is thawing. In 2016, a child died in Siberia from a disease locked in the ice since 1941. In 2023, scientists revived a virus frozen for 48,500 years. In laboratories around the world, researchers are cataloging ancient bacteria with antibiotic resistance profiles they've never seen before. And every year, the permafrost thaws a little deeper. We don't know what's coming next, but the ancient world does. It's been waiting a very long time for us to find out. Next week, we're going deeper into what's hidden beneath the ice and the creatures that lived alongside these ancient bacteria in a world you won't recognize. Subscribe so you don't miss it. It's all still down there, and it's waking up.